Oh, Mr. Pan is here. He signed first.
Okay, welcome everyone to GEO. We'll go ahead and get started. We don't have a quorum present yet, so sergeants, if you could call the absent members and remind them that committee has begun. We will go ahead and begin our business as a subcommittee. I see Senator Pan is here. Senator, if you would approach. This is item 8 members, SB 530. Welcome, Senator. Please present.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. SB 530 is a measure to define pedal-powered pedicabs in statute and establish minimum safety requirements that allow these businesses to operate successfully. Pedal-powered pedicabs are multi-passenger bicycles that rely solely on human power for momentum. It's a relatively new activity in our state that is green and safe, as evidenced by the success of these small businesses. And these small businesses currently operate in Sacramento, San Diego, Santa Monica, and Palm Springs, but have been also operating in other states and around the world for more than a decade.
Move the bill.
Okay, we have a...
Oh, I have a quorum.
Yeah.
I appreciate the effort, though. Thank you.
The bill's been moved and seconded. When we establish a quorum,
okay. However, unfortunately, California does not have uniform regulations governing their operation and safety. As a result, these new small businesses have struggled and sometimes even been prevented from operating due to regulatory absence, confusion, and limitation. Some pedal-powered operators have gone out of business already due to overregulation by cities that have never encountered these types of vehicles. So SB 530 will provide regulatory clarity and uniformity as well as minimum safety standards that lend themselves to successful operation and for these innovative small businesses to grow in California. And basically all that SB 530 would do is require municipalities, they would require them to pass a local ordinance permitting the operation of these vehicles and designate a local transportation authority to inspect the vehicles. So it's, again, at the local option. And the municipalities could choose to expand on these provisions and designate where they are to operate. So, again, this is very much about local option, local control. So with that, we've clarified we're going to work with the committee and ABC to draft clarifying amendment per policy consideration, page 5, the analysis. And this is passed with unanimous bipartisan support in Senate and Assembly Transportation Committee and supported by in the Senate and supported by local merchants, small business and restaurant owners, tourists and tourism associations, as well as numerous individuals across California. Respectively, if I ask for an aye vote, I have witnesses in support.
Hello, my name is Todd Sebastian. I am the owner and operator of Off the Chain Bike Bus Tours, which is currently here in Sacramento. We're really excited about this. As you can imagine, when I brought a bicycle to town, I never knew it would need to do all this work. So I appreciate all your staff and efforts in giving us the guidance, and it's been a really valuable experience. But we are very hopeful for this. We began as we had a vision of doing this. These were being done overseas in a few states, worked with the Downtown Sacramento Partnership, and thankfully we finished in their top 5 and have now actually are currently in operation and just trying to make it the implementation of the full business plan. We currently, it's such a great item for downtown. We stop with 40 different partners, hotels, museums, restaurants, and everyone benefits. It's a great economic impact. Today, we just had multiple people calling us trying to do a new route going down the R Street area. So it's we're really appreciative of your time, and any questions you have, we'd be happy to answer if needed.
Hello, Mr. Chair and members. Alex Gibbs from Townsend Public Affairs, and also here on behalf of Off the Chain. I'll be very brief. First, I'd like to thank your staff and the committee staff for all of their hard work. I'll very briefly address the alcohol concerns and the analysis. We've been working very closely with public safety agencies every step of the way, including CHP, local PD, and ABC. While this would allow for visible and open-air consumption of alcohol, we feel that that's nothing new. This is very similar to open-air patio seating, and while it is visible consumption. So with that, I thank you for your time and ask for your support.
Okay. Any additional support? Seeing none. Any opposition? Seeing none, any questions from the members? Seeing none, Senator, you have a motion and a second, and as soon as we have a quorum, you have a due pass to appropriations position from the chair, and I'm sure everything will work out.
All right. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members.
Okay, at this time, we're going to move to Senator Hill Senator had two bills, although SB 438, members, has been pulled from the agenda. Let me make a couple comments about that. I've had conversations with the senator, and he is, I think, supportive, at least in concept, of the ideas raised in the analysis that have been subject to some discussion in respect to e-cigs. Given the pending special session on health care and some of the other timing issues, we're going to go ahead and hold the bill here in committee, but continue to work with the senator on that subject area in the hopes that sometimes this session we can move something forward in respect to that policy. So thank you, Senator. And go ahead and present on your other item.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. SB 494, I'm sorry, yes. Oh, SB 135 by Senator Padilla, enacted in 2013, requires the Governor's Office of Emergency Services to develop a comprehensive statewide earthquake early warning system based on public-private partnerships. The law says the general fund cannot be used for this system. However, SB 135 did not establish a special fund capable of accepting grants or contributions for the earthquake early warning system. SB 494 simply establishes the California Earthquake Safety Fund to implement the earthquake early warning system. I respectfully ask for an aye vote, members.
Okay, do we have any support? Additional support? Seeing none. Opposition?
I'll move the item.
We have a motion. And we have a second from Mr. Mays.
Thank you, Jen.
Did you want to OES?
Do we have OES? Why don't we have you come up? I've got a couple of questions for you.
Hey, Reggie, how are you?
Welcome. The Senator and I have had some discussions. We've previously had an informational hearing on this subject that the Senator's working on. My understanding is there may be some additional efforts afoot by the department and administration to establish maybe some additional governance outlines, and that this bill potentially could be a resting place for those ideas.
Correct, Chairman. My name is Reggie Salvador with the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. With me is Mark Johnson, who's the head of OES's earthquake and tsunami programs. We have been working with the Senator, and we have committed to continue working with the Senator as well as with you, Mr. Chair, on creating a governance structure to have a more sustainable system that will be able to fully implement California's earthquake early warning system. In that, the concept is looking at all the various earthquake programs throughout the state and seeing how they best can be created within this governance structure to fully support the system.
Okay, thank you for that update, and please keep us informed. Certainly, the Senator has my full faith and trust in this issue, but we'd like to see some of that language as it develops.
Most definitely.
Thank you so much. Senator, I believe you have a motion and a second, and as soon as we have a quorum, we'll proceed with this business.
And I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. Thank you, members. Thank you for the support. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Okay, at this time, Sergeants, if you could check on the other committee members. We need to establish a quorum. We have one item remaining. As soon as Senator Jackson joins us, we can conclude our business here today. Okay, I see Senator Jackson has joined us. Welcome, Senator.
All right, ma'am.
Welcome, Senator. If we could go ahead and begin with SB 414, that's item 5, the oil spill response legislation.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. First, I want to thank the committee for its thorough and thoughtful analysis. I am pleased to have included authors' amendments to address opposition concerns articulated in the analysis. Also, before I start, I would like to commend the Pacific Merchant Shipping Association for collaborating with my staff. It's my understanding we've come to a compromise on all of their issues, with only one minor issue outstanding. And at the earliest opportunity, I will amend the bill to reflect this compromise.
Move the bill.
We have a motion, and we have the second by Mr. Linder.
Okay. Well, with that, I am encouraged to go on and tell you that this bill is in response to an oil spill reminiscent to my community of a major spill that occurred in 1969, which was then the largest known oil spill that had occurred that blackened the pristine Santa Barbara coastline. That spill actually spawned the modern version of Earth Day, giving birth to the environmental movement as we know it today. Unfortunately, we are no stranger in my community to oil spills. And then we fast forward to May 19th of this year, which happens to also be my birthday, so I'm doubly resentful of the fact that this spill occurred. But nonetheless, an onshore pipeline carrying crude oil ruptured and spilled at least 10,000 or at least 100,000 gallons of oil, 20,000 at least, that found their way into the ocean, into the coast off our shoreline. So what can we do about this? Well, first, we can start by not reinventing the wheel. In the wake of the Exxon Valdez spill, a very effective program was created for Prince William Sound that enables local fishing vessels and crews to immediately respond to oil spills. Local fishermen, as we know, are best suited to immediately respond to a spill since they're on site, they know the water and the currents, and are interested, certainly, in protecting their economic interests in the ocean. If California had a program actually similar to the one in Prince William Sound, then a more comprehensive response could have started at least 6 hours sooner, which would have reduced the negative impacts on our ocean, our beaches, our wildlife, and the economy. Finally, peer-reviewed science cited in this committee's analysis has concluded that little to no evidence exists for the claims that dispersants
Senator,
reduce...
I'm going to interrupt you for a second, and we're going to establish a quorum while we have one.
Excellent.
Secretary, please call the roll.
Gray.
Here.
Linder.
Here.
Ashajian. Alejo. Bigelow.
Present.
Campos. Here. Cooley. Cooper.
Present.
Daly. Cristina Garcia. Eduardo Garcia.
Present.
Gibson.
Here.
Hernandez. Jones Sawyer.
Present.
Levine. Mays.
Present.
Perea.
Here.
Salas. Steinnorth.
Here.
Waldron. Present.
Senator, you have a motion, a second, a quorum, a due pass recommendation with the author's amendments from the chair.
I would urge your aye vote.
Thank you. Any additional support at this time? Seeing none, any...
Good. Good afternoon, Chair Gray and honorable members of the committee. Amy Trainer with the West Marin Environmental Action Committee. I've worked on oil spill issues in Washington State as well as California for the past 5 or 6 years. I think the Rapid Oil Spill Prevention Act is definitely needed. It fills in some gaps for OSPR's mandate to provide our coast and ocean waters with best achievable protection through best available technology. We have a $45 billion coastal economy. It's worth protecting. These are small prices to pay, especially when you consider that this pipeline disaster has cost $100 million in cleanup, and that price tag is still rising with lawsuits and natural resources damage assessment. The other fact is that cargo vessels have grown by upwards of 60%. So these behemoths that are coming along our west coast into our ports carry more heavy bunker fuel, and they increase the risk of oil spills. So between pipelines, bigger vessels, this will fill in the gaps by requiring we really get to that best achievable protection standard, and we respectfully urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Kelly Dunn on behalf of California League of Conservation Voters in support. Good morning, Chair and members. Katrina Robinson on behalf of the Ocean Conservancy in support.
Tamar Burke on behalf of Audubon, California in support.
Okay, seeing no additional support testimony, do we have any opposition testimony?
You can stay. Oh, how many do they have? Oh, 3. Sorry.
You're good.
Okay. I just get an extra pen.
That's pretty good.
It's a huge committee.
Welcome. Please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. My name is John Berg. I represent the Pacific Merchant Shipping Association, which are dry cargo, basically container vessels, calling California's ports. First, I'd like to say we applaud the author in seeking improvement to the oil spill prevention response program, which always needs to be improved on a constant basis. We did feel that there was certain language in the bill that was somewhat problematic, but I'd like to thank the author and her staff for having some very productive discussions with us, and based on the comments today, it sounds like most of these have been resolved. We certainly look forward to seeing actual language in the future to address our opposed unless amended position. I do know the one issue we had that was somewhat outstanding was our efforts to seek essentially a technology-neutral assessment of both technology as well as risk assessments. And hopefully we can come to conclusion and agreement on those particular issues. So that being said, we'll continue to work with the author and look forward to seeing those amendments. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members, Brian White here on behalf of the Western States Petroleum Association. We have an opposed unless amended position on the bill. We don't oppose the entire bill. I want to make that clear. We oppose a specific provision in the bill. I know the senator is making amendments with regards to trying to narrow the scope of the ban of dispersants. We still think that that is not workable for us. Dispersants are simply sorbents and microorganisms that are used in the event of an oil spill. They help break down the oil. And to take that tool out of the toolbox, we think would limit the type of response tools that would be needed besides just booming and skimming. You need everything in the toolbox just in case that is needed. The Unified Command in an oil spill wants to have as many tools as possible because depending on the weather, the turbulence, the amount of oil that's spilled, the type of oil that's spilled, you can't boom and skim everything up. You have to have that tool in the toolbox. Now, granted, it's never been used in California before, and that's for a reason because OSPR, the agency that oversees this program, has never felt that they had to need it. That being said, they don't want that taken away from them. If you ask other federal agencies, OSPR, local, state, and federal entities, they all get together and they actually make a decision about this as a unified approach. So it's not just a willy-nilly, just dump dispersants into the water. They actually go through a process. There's a federal list of dispersants that are used, and those are the only ones that can be used. So while she's limited the bill down to the marine life protected areas, we think this still sets a bad precedent in banning dispersants in future use. For those reasons, we still opposed.
Okay, any additional testimony in opposition?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Anthony Thomas, representing the California Independent Petroleum Association. I'll make it very quick. We just echo the comments of our counterparts at the Western States Petroleum Association, but surely want to recognize that the author is more than willing to continue to work with us. Appreciate where the bill has come to this point, and we look forward to possibly working out the disbursement issue with the author and her staff. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any additional testimony in opposition? Seeing none, any questions from the members? Seeing none, we have a motion. Oh, Mr. Bigelow.
So, to the author, could you kind of maybe respond to those comments on the dispersion?
Sure. First of all, dispersants have never been used in California. There's a reason, because dispersants are extraordinarily toxic. They used them down in Louisiana for the Horizon spill, and they have created enormous health problems. That what they are, they're beads. They come down, they capture the oil, and then they sink to the bottom of the ocean. They're then eaten by fish and bottom crawlers, and they're carcinogenic. Then they get fed through the rest of the food chain. So it's a tool that's never been used, and in California we don't want it to be used, and I would have to respectfully disagree. I don't believe OSPR has ever taken the position they support them. I don't believe that the WSPA is speaking on behalf of OSPR. There is a reason we don't have them, and there are other tools in the toolbox. They've never been used. They've never been needed. We believe that it would be appropriate that we end even the consideration of something that has demonstrated itself to be a real negative, rather than cleaning up the oceans. They have just laced the ocean bottom with more toxicity, which is something that I think is counterproductive at the very least. And so we did indicate, I believe, the amendment that we took was to simply focus the prohibition on the use of dispersants in marine protected areas, I believe is the. So we are limiting that prohibition. It's a compromise. I think every health expert, every environmentalist will tell you that dispersants are a very detrimental material and should not be used, period.
And for clarification, the defined area that you're limiting the inability to use this product or these products is what geographic area? Could you kind of give us an outline?
Marine protected areas. There are, I believe, 13 of them along the coast of California. No, I'm sorry. Wrong number.
There are 126 marine protected area. They comprise approximately 15% of state water. So 85% of state waters would still be available for the use of chemical dispersants, but within the exact boundaries of the marine protected areas, the dispersants would still be banned.
And are those areas that are primarily being utilized for purposes where we may see the most exposure to toxic spills?
Well, hopefully not, because we're trying not to drill in marine protected areas.
We're trying not to, but there are those areas that are currently under and in production currently. So are those the primary areas that would be affected and not be able to use these to help disperse?
I don't understand.
I would care. I think I'm going to answer your question. I would say that our marine protected areas are the most sensitive ecological sites. They are deemed MPAs for short because we're restoring fish for our commercial fishing and sport fishing industries. So that's why they're protected. And what they found in the Gulf is when you, and there's a lot of peer-reviewed science that has come out in the past 5 years since the Deepwater disaster, that dispersants combine with oil to magnify the toxicity of the oil by a factor of 50 to 100, and they've killed things from deep-sea corals all the way up to dolphins. So
yeah. I get the part about the sensitivity and the protection, but I'm just wondering, are those the areas that we're using currently the most, and are those the areas that would need that product in a toolbox?
If I can, through the chair, Mr. Chair.
Could I ask that question, Mr. Chair?
Repeat the question.
Okay, repeating the question.
You want me to approve your question? Or you?
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Bigelow.
Are those the areas that we are currently using for production purposes? And are those the areas that would most likely need this product in the toolbox if there is a spill the most?
I think the short answer is there's potential for it, yes. And I think while we're not speaking for OSPR, and I'm not here to speak for OSPR, and talking to the agencies, they have indicated that just because they've never used it before, they don't want that taken away from them. And I think it's And the one thing,
that's speaking for the agency, but that is speaking for the agency, and I would respectfully suggest that the agencies have not said that they would do that. So I really
respectfully, Senator Jackson.
Well,
all I'm indicating is
can I just ask
technical questions that I've.
I know the speaker. I know the author is very passionate about this issue.
Sure.
So, and I know we want to keep a very respectful tone.
Sure.
On trying to address the question. If to the author. If you could please answer that question for me, and then I'll come back and ask the author to respond to any of those comments.
Sure.
Would you please? Thank you.
Yes.
Through the chair. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I will speak on behalf of WISPA. Yes, there is still potential for these dispersants to be used, and not all of them are toxic. I want to make that clear too. Some of these dispersants are common household products that you find in your everyday product that you would use in your household. I mean, an example is in washing dishes. If you use whatever liquid you might use to wash dishes and you put it in the water, it disperses the oil, and it does it for a reason. Okay, so not every dispersant is toxic. Now, federal EPA is studying these currently as a result of the incident in the Gulf. They have a list of these dispersants, and they go through a vetting process. It's done on a case-by-case basis. Risk analysis involved. There's not a complete ban. Okay, so to completely ban the substances while these studies are going on, in addition to the state study that's going on as well, they update this dispersant list. It just seems a conflict and counterintuitive, especially when they weren't even used in the spill that just happened. All we're saying is just this has to be based on a case-by-case basis and let the agencies have this in their toolbox.
Thank you very much. To the author, could you please help us all?
I believe the question was, are we drilling in these MPAs?
Are we utilizing those areas? Yes.
For drilling, and the answer is no.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, any
Thank you for the
additional questions? Seeing none, we have a motion, we have a second, we have a quorum, we have a due pass recommendation from the chair with author's amendments. Secretary, please call the roll.
Gray.
Aye.
Gray, aye. Linder. Ashajian. Alejo. Bigelow. Campos. Aye. Campos, aye. Cooley. Cooper.
Aye.
Cooper, aye. Daly.
Aye.
Daly, aye. Christina Garcia. Aye. Christina Garcia, aye. Eduardo Garcia.
Aye.
Eduardo Garcia, aye. Gibson.
Aye.
Gibson, aye. Hernandez.
Aye.
Hernandez, aye. Jones Sawyer. Levine.
Aye.
Levine, aye. Mays. Perea.
Not voting.
Perea not voting. Salas. Steinnorth. Waldron. Wilk.
Aye.
Wilk, aye. Bill's on call.
Okay, we'll put that bill on call, Senator. At this time, let's move to
Thank you,
item
Chairman.
number 1, SB 295. And before we get started, I just want to clarify for the committee, everyone has before them amendments to SB 295. The First Amendment will remove Section 1 of the bill. This section deals with the frequency of the testing, i.e. smart pigging and hydrostatic testing. So we're going to remove that section entirely. The Senator is going to retain Section 2 of the bill, requiring annual inspections of interstate pipelines and further clarifying that inspections will include actual pipelines.
Correct.
Which would seem to make some sense. Senator, do you want to go ahead and present on the bill?
Very briefly, first I want to thank you and the committee for assisting us in this matter. This is another response to this incident that occurred on May 19th. We've had a lot of conversation about this. We'll continue to work with you on this. But basically, what we have discovered is that we have not been inspecting these pipelines regularly enough. And so this is a measure that will require the actual physical pipeline inspections on an annual basis. As we are doing more and more drilling and thus moving more and more oil through pipelines, it's really important that we make sure that the integrity of the pipelines is sustained, and that's what this bill will do. With that, I have a couple witnesses, or I guess just one witness here, to testify in support.
Okay, briefly in support.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Amy Traynor, West Marin Environmental Action Committee. We believe these are very reasonable measures. We believe, this pipeline rupture really impacted families in our underserved communities at a really awful time at the beginning of summer. So we would strongly urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Any additional support on the item?
Kelly Doe on behalf of California League Conservation Voters in support. Thank you.
How many votes do we need to get the bill?
Okay, any opposition? Please approach.
We can probably make this quick. I can do it from here. Senator, Mr. Chair, members, Brian White on behalf of Western States Petroleum Association. Given the amendments that the author has agreed to with the chair, we will respectfully remove our position and look forward to working with you in the future on this issue.
Excellent.
Mr. Chairman, Anthony Thomas, representing California Independent Petroleum Association. We want to thank the author for agreeing to the amendments, and SIPA officially removes their opposition as well.
Well, that makes me nervous, but good. Thank you very much. And with that, I would just simply ask for an item.
Here in the GO committee, Senator, we're bringing people together. So just for clarification purposes, you are accepting the proposed amendments as author's amendments, removing Section 1, retaining Section 2, as noted earlier, members. Additionally, just as a matter of background, the Senator and I have had some preliminary discussions about diving into the remainder of the issue in respect to the different types of testing in more depth, perhaps even with a joint informational hearing at a later date with the Senator's Select Committee and this committee. So as a point of background. Do we have a motion and a second?
So moved.
We have a question from Mr. Saul. We have a properly moved bill with Mr. Hernandez and Ms. Garcia. Mr. Salas, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, through the chair. I just had a quick question because I was reading, thank you for, you removed Section 1. Now Section 2 just basically says this, the state fire marshal can annually inspect these, but I heard that there's going to be an interim hearing now, so we're not talking about which method, whether it's a hydrostatic or whether it's the smart pig, for instance. That's silent now on this bill, and we're just...
Yes, we're going to discuss further, but the point is to leave this up to the fire marshal. It is their jurisdiction and their responsibility. So it is. We've been discussing with the fire marshal what their needs are in order to be able to continue inspecting, to be able to do it safely, and also to protect against these spills. Again, that's the bottom line. The hope and the purpose is to make sure that of the integrity of these pipelines, which are transmitting more and more oil as we continue to drill. And that's essentially what this creates, that vehicle for them to do that.
Okay. So under your understanding, then the state fire marshal would have that authority in the future to decide what the best method for annually testing these pipelines is, whether that be the smart pig or some other technology or the hydro.
It's their responsibility, and we want to encourage them to exercise and have available to them the resources so that they can do that job.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, Secretary, please call the roll.
Gray.
Aye.
Gray, aye. Linder. Ashajian. Alejo. Bigelow.
Yes.
Bigelow, aye. Campos. Aye. Campos, aye. Cooley. Cooper.
Aye.
Cooper, aye. Daly. Daly, aye. Christina Garcia. Christina Garcia, aye. Eduardo Garcia. Eduardo Garcia, aye. Gibson.
Aye.
Gibson, aye. Hernandez.
Aye.
Hernandez, aye. Jones Sawyer. Levine. Aye. Levine, aye. Mays.
Aye.
Mays, aye. Perea. Perea, aye. Salas. Salas, aye. Steinnorth. Steinnorth, aye. Waldron. Wilk.
Aye.
Wilk, aye.
Senator, that bill's out. We'll leave the roll open for add-ons.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you.
Okay, members, we're going to leave the roll open for... We're going to move to the consent calendar. We have a motion from Mr. Gibson, a second from Mr. Bigelow. Secretary, please call the roll.
Gray.
Aye.
Gray, aye. Linder. Ashajian. Alejo. Bigelow.
Aye.
Bigelow, aye. Campos. Campos, aye. Cooley. Cooper.
Aye.
Cooper, aye. Daly. Daly, aye. Christina Garcia. Christina Garcia, aye. Eduardo Garcia. Eduardo Garcia, aye. Gibson. Gibson, aye. Hernandez. Hernandez, aye. Jones Sawyer. Levine. Levine, aye. Mays. Mays, aye. Perea. Perea, aye. Salas. Salas, aye. Steinnorth. Steinnorth, aye. Waldron. Wilk. Consent calendar's been adopted.
Okay, the consent calendar's been adopted. We're going to move to item 8. We already have a motion and a second on that item. Secretary, please call the roll.
Gray.
Aye.
Gray, aye. Linder. Ashajian. Alejo. Bigelow. Bigelow, aye. Campos.
No.
Campos, no. Yes. Cooley. Cooper. Daly. Daly, aye. Cooper not voting. Christina Garcia. Christina Garcia, aye. Eduardo Garcia. Eduardo Garcia, aye. Gibson.
Aye.
Gibson, aye. Hernandez. Mr. Hernandez. Is that an aye?
That's aye. Yeah.
Well, you got to say it. Hernandez, aye. John Sawyer. Levine. Levine, aye. Mays. Mays, aye. Perea. Salas. Salas, aye. Steinnorth. Steinnorth, aye. Waldron. Wilk.
Aye.
Wilk, aye. That bill's out. Perea, aye. That bill's out.
Okay, that bill's out. This time we're going to move to item 7, SB 494 Hill. Bill's been moved and seconded. Secretary, please call the roll.
Gray.
Aye.
Gray, aye. Linder. Ashajian. Alejo. Bigelow. This is 494, sir. Bigelow, aye. Campos. Campos, aye. Cooley. Cooper. Cooper, aye. Daly. Daly, aye. Christina Garcia. Christina Garcia, aye. Eduardo Garcia. Eduardo Garcia, aye. Mr. Gibson.
Aye.
Gibson, aye. Hernandez.
Aye.
Hernandez, aye. Jones Sawyer. Levine. 494, sir. Levine, aye. Mays. Mays, aye. Perea. Salas. Salas, aye. Steinnorth. Perea, aye. Steinnorth. Steinnorth, aye. Waldron. Wilk.
Aye.
Wilk, aye. Linder, aye.
Okay, that bill's out. Members, I think that concludes our business. We will thank Mr. Levine for bringing a tie to committee today, and we will leave the roll open for 5 minutes for add-ons.